I thought I'd start off with a little bit of beefcake just so I could show you this. For those of you not familiar, I was in this bike race crash, or a practice bike race crash, end of July. The 21st of August, I had a plate and screws put in. I was a little too active afterwards, and a couple of screws partially came out, but since the connection was still good and the screws were in a little bit, they kept things as they were, and about 9 weeks later, which is yesterday, they took those plate and screws out because it was that plate was unscrewing even more, and it was coming up like this. It was definitely protruding from the bone area and pushing up into the skin. But that's not why I'm doing this video. It's been about 6 months since I've done my last Afib update. And as time has gone by, I've gathered some more data. And a pattern seems to be emerging. Gotta be careful about this. There are a pattern of sorts. So, for those of you not familiar with the channel, about 2.5 years ago I had my first Afib incident that I'm aware of. And I got cardioverted from that. And so what they do when they cardiovert you, they put these electrodes around you and they yell clear and zzz, not that bad or dramatic, but they give you a shock and then it resets you. And then the second Afib incident that I had, where I got cardioverted again, was a year later. Since then they've given me calcium channel blockers. And in case I ever get Afib again, so I can just take those and about an hour later, it just slows everything down and then I just reset from that. And I've had to use that a couple times. So since my first Afib incident, it seems like I've had incidences averaging about twice a year or so. So now I'm at the 2.5 year mark, and it's been, about a year since my last Afib incident. But I've started to notice some things. So last time I got cardioverted was in July of 2017, and so that caused me to end my race season pretty early, because what happens is I have to go off the bike for about 2 weeks while they give me this blood thinner for it to take effect, and then they go do the cardioverting, and then everything's good from there after that. And then I think about a month later, due to my exceeding some parameters, maybe didn't get enough sleep, and so I was really pushing myself at one point. And before I went to work, I got Afib again. I took the calcium channel blocker, and about an hour later, it just reset me, and so I was good. So for that season, that off season, that last year, leading into 2018 racing season, I had a slow build up, and it was actually pretty slow build up. And during that time, I'm doing a lot of steady efforts, long steady efforts, maybe a few short intense efforts, but basically mostly aerobic work. And my incidences of feeling skipped beats or quick 3-second accelerations, which I feel every so often, maybe once every couple weeks before, that was starting to now go away and extend out. It'd be a longer time before I feel those feelings again. And so it got to the point where it seemed like I was forgetting that I even had Afib. Race season starts in February, and because of my slow buildup, I start to really pick up things intensity-wise in March. And when I do that, then the incidences of those skip beats and those quick accelerations started coming back and increasing to whatever normal pattern I had before. Sometimes they'd be cyclical. Sometimes I have a few in a week, and other times it'd be like one a week. So now, end of this season, I got to my district championships, my district road race championships, without waking up with Afib like I did the previous 2 years. That was quite interesting. And so I thought, okay, this is good. This is going to lead me into a good 2020 season, and I can think about going over to nationals. Then I got in this bike race crash, or this practice bike race crash, and so that slowed me down quite a bit. So now, after they put the plate in, I started doing high intensity work on the trainer, but it was just short bouts of high intensity work, and then I was doing a little aerobic work, and then finally when I got on the road, I was just doing a lot of climbing, a lot of steady climbing and so forth. And now the incidences of those small accelerations and skip beats, they're almost gone. I'm in that same situation. So I'm thinking that once I start working on the higher intensity anaerobic work, then that's going to start to come back, especially once I'm in the race season. So, as always, I have to stick to my parameters. What caused my AFib before, even though no one knows what causes your particular incidence of AFib, they have data as to what can lead to AFib. And I certainly was in that group. So I was years of endurance work and years of burning the candle at both ends, literally. And then capped it off with about 9 months of, right before my first instance of AFib, of consuming caffeine products, and sometimes consuming a lot of caffeine products. Because of the burning candle at both ends, that caffeine was keeping me awake, and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. Well, now I've stopped that a long time ago. I'm not taking any medicines, any beta blockers. That stopped a little after the second cardio version because I was taking so little bit. They said, it's really not doing that much for you. And I'm not taking any blood thinners. I'm not even taking any aspirin. I just have that, my little cocktail that I call of channel blockers and Eliquis. In case I do have another AFib incident, I take the calcium channel blockers, of course, for the AFib, and the Eliquis, which is a blood thinner, just in case the channel blocker doesn't work. Okay, that's my update. I'd love to hear about your situation. Even if you're in athletics or not, I often want to get comments on these videos. It seems like there's a good story behind there, and I often contact the people and listen to their story. And I learn from it. So that's one of the advantages of my doing this channel. Okay, as always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.